2.
Hi everyone, my name is Pravin Jayasundere. I'm a freelance food and product photographer, and I am going to share with you the 3 most important photography tips and the 3 most important business tips that I have learned in my photography career so far. These tips have really helped me grow my business and my Instagram page, and I hope it will do the same thing for you and that it can inspire you at least a little bit. This is photo tip number 1, how to learn photography. When a lot of people start out, it's very difficult to figure out where to start learning photography. There's a lot of different ways to learn photography and none of them are per se right or wrong. You have to figure out which learning method works best for you. Personally for me, if you've been following me for a long time, you know that a lot of what I know comes from YouTube. I'm primarily a food and product photographer, and there are a lot of content creators on YouTube that I can learn from. In addition to YouTube, there are 3 other ways that I've learned from. The first one would be other photographers who have taught me directly. Second would be from my friends who give me tips on how I can improve. And third, which is the most important of all, is by just shooting and making mistakes and learning from those mistakes. So yeah, I would spend a lot of time learning as much as I can because that is the most important thing in anything, and that is no different in this art form that is photography. This is photo tip number 2, the most important things in photography that aren't quite that obvious. Number 1, what kind of photography do you want to be doing? Are you going to be doing architecture photography, portrait photography, product photography, food photography, or are you going to be doing everything? Whatever it is, it's important to know what kind of photography you want to be doing when you're getting into it. Number 2, appreciate the best thing about your subject. Whether you're shooting food, whether you're shooting people, whether you're shooting cars, appreciate what makes that subject unique and beautiful. It's easy to take a pretty picture of cake when you know what makes that cake pretty before you begin. And the last one for this tip is editing. Editing your photography can make or break your picture. Again, with editing, try and bring out what's best about your subject and don't try and overcomplicate things. Editing can take your photography game up several levels. This is photo tip number 3, the most important thing about photography, which is lighting. I don't know a whole lot about photography, but one thing I do know is how lighting affects the pictures that you take. The only reason you can see me so well and that there's a shadow on my face and that it creates this nice 3D effect is because of the lighting that I've used. Learn the differences between front lighting, back lighting, side lighting, shadows, highlights, and every single way that light can be modified and how light affects your image. Photography is the art of capturing light, so to not understand light and to try and get ahead in photography is not very practical. Next time you're shooting, try out different kinds of lighting, place your subject in a way that where the lighting changes, and I promise you'll see results that you haven't seen before. Now I'm going to move on to the 3 most important business tips. Please keep in mind these are tips from a person who does photography as a side hustle, and I'm not a full-time photographer, so just keep that in mind when you're watching this video. Tip number 1, don't be scared to do free work when you're just starting out. I've spoken about how important it is to build a portfolio that you can present to your clients when you're pitching yourself as a photographer. But then a lot of people say, no one's going to hire me because I don't have a portfolio, and I don't have a portfolio because no one's going to hire me. And I understand, I had that problem when I started out as well. But then I understood the value of doing work for free. Now keep in mind, you don't want to be doing free work all the time because you need to get paid eventually if you're running a business. But if you don't have a portfolio and you need content to get your business going, doing free work for clients or even just for yourself is a great way to start. If I had to simplify it, go up to client A, do some free work for them, take the pictures that you take from that project, put them in your portfolio, go to client B and say, look at the pictures I took for them. Do you want pictures like this? They'll say yes, and then you say, these are my rates, how can I help you? Easy money. It's not easy money, but it's money, so yeah. Alright, that was tip number 1. Let's move on to tip number 2. This is tip number 2, know what your industry expects from you. When I go for a shoot, not only do I know what the client expects from me, but I also understand what standards I have to hit to satisfy the quality that is expected from the food photography industry in Sri Lanka. When I go for a food shoot, I know that they want me to present their food in the best way possible and that I need to tick all the boxes in terms of photography rules and the do's and don'ts of food photography. But when I was first starting out, I didn't have any idea of what those rules were, so I went and I experimented and I talked to my client and I understood what they wanted and what the brief of the project was. Don't be afraid to talk to other photographers and get their insight on what makes the industry what it is, and also don't be afraid to talk to clients and to figure out what they want their pictures looking like at the end. Satisfying the standards that the industry has set and that the client has set for you is fundamental in getting good quality pictures across to both your industry and your client. So yeah, that was tip number 2. I will catch you for tip number 3. This is tip number 3, where to find clients. It's very daunting to think about getting clients on your CV when you don't have any clients to begin with. Some ways that worked for me was starting an Instagram page and sharing my knowledge. It made them comfortable in approaching me because they knew that I knew what I was talking about to a certain extent. Another way that worked for me was asking my friends if they wanted shoots done for them. It gives you hands-on experience with working with a client even if they're your friends, going to the field and actually taking pictures and meeting deadlines in terms of editing. But the most important tip I can give you is to treat your clients nicely. Even if a shoot goes badly, even if you don't think you did well, be nice to them, treat them as human beings, and leave the door open for future opportunities. Getting clients is difficult, but remember, you don't need a million of them. You just need a consistent, meaningful few. This has been the 3 most important business tips that I have learned in my photography career. I hope I helped. I hope I have inspired you at least a little bit, and good luck on your journey. See ya!